As many of you who play Star Citizen will know, not every time you sit down to play will go according to plan, and that was just the case for this trip out in the C1 Spirit. So, what do you do in such situations? Well, I'm Forrester, and this gameplay video shows about an hour's worth of gameplay in the C1 Spirit, albeit with some parts sped up to keep the overall length of this video down. Those parts are clearly marked as such. The goal of this trip was to do some rock mining, loading up the rover and grabbing some gems, but as often happens, that didn't go according to plan. So, let's get into it. And as always, we'll start by claiming the ship. We're here on Microtech in New Babbage. New Babbage is a pretty good place for this sort of thing because you can spawn in your ship and then very quickly and easily fly over to the ice and load up any ground vehicles that you like, albeit keeping a weather eye out for any stowaways. Here you can see that this has been sped up to ×12 speed. That's just to make things a little smoother for your viewing experience and reduce a little bit of the tedium involved in loading up some of the ground rovers. So we'll head in, we'll grab our rock mining rover, and there it is. Beautiful. So one of the things that you may notice as we get this rock mining rover started is just how loud the thing is. It certainly seems to be getting louder and louder every single patch, and if you've got this in the back of your ship, you'll pretty much hear it, I think. And there we are, request that the commons open the door, and then we'll drive down to the ship. Interestingly, for this run through, this area outside of the commons is, I would say, relatively quiet compared to many times I've been out here, and this whole area has been littered with ships, so it's feeling like a calm, serene experience for now. That is till the lights flicker and you can see through the floor and it feels like a horror film, but never mind. So this sort of situation is usually one where you do want to keep an eye out, because this is the sort of thing where if you do have any stowaways, this is the sort of situation in which you would get them when you've got the doors open to load up a vehicle in a very public place. So try and maneuver the rock mining rover as neatly as possible to get her aboard. Maybe stowaways aren't a problem for you, depends on how much you trust people. I think I'm probably quite mistrusting in Star Citizen. Maybe I've been reading too many Reddit posts of people who've been had a negative experience with a stowaway. Maybe that's why. So we're gonna head out and we're gonna head down to the surface of Utopia for this one. So here's the ×12 speed of moving to the surface. As I'll often do when I'm out mining, especially in a very fast ship like the Spirit, I will actually head down quite far away from any quantum markers, so the likelihood then of meeting another player whilst you're out peacefully mining is reduced, and that's what I've done in this situation. I've just headed out away from any other players and heading down to the surface. The most valuable of the rock mining elements is the Hadanite. Because these moons around Microtech don't have Hadanite, I'm really less selective about what I find, because I know that it's going to be either Aphorite or Dolivine, and I'm comfortable with either. They've got a very similar value, and for this I'm just wanting to fill up. It doesn't matter what it is, it'll all sell. That's the concept anyway. The other advantage, of course, of being quite far away from anything here, I'm literally in the middle of nowhere on this moon, is I'm quite comfortable to leave the back door open, because the chances of me running into another player out here in the edge of nowhere is yeah, very low, I would say. Sometimes the rover can be a bit pernickety to maneuver around. And then it's just a case of finding those rocks apart nearby, and here they are. There we are, a bit of upright, that should be okay. Now this is where things are not working as intended, so pressing the button to start mining and nothing is happening. Trying to change the laser intensity and nothing is happening. So leave the mining mode, re-enter the mining mode. And these are kind of the troubleshooting steps that I'm trying to go through. See if I can see what's physically happening with the mining arm. And power the whole thing off. If in doubt, switch it off and switch it on again.
Systems on.
Still pressing and no luck with this.
Mining mode off. Mining mode on. Fracturing mode on.
As you can hear me going through all of the different motions here, trying to get this thing to work. I think it's quite easy to do when you're trying to showcase Star Citizen gameplay, is just like I've done here, I think, speeding up some of the less interesting bits. It'd be very easy to curate this and show you something where it was all working and it was all going beautifully, but actually that's not always the Star Citizen experience. So now I'm toggling the power to the mining arm and the mining head at the end. But I thought, actually, do you know what? No, let's show the things that don't work and all the different things that you try and do to get it to work, and what you do ultimately if it doesn't work out in the end. So here I'm going to get out of the mining rover, have a quick look at the mining arm. No obvious signs of damage. Get back in. So yeah, this gameplay footage, I suppose, is honest footage. This is how it goes sometimes. You know, you see the times where things work great, but you also see the times when things don't work as intended. So you have to let me know in the video comments if that's something that you appreciate seeing, so that you know that it affects everybody, or whether you'd rather just see the good stuff. Either way is fine. Let me know in the comments. Toggle the laser again. Just trying to see if I can troubleshoot, you know, trying everything to see what I can do to get this rock working.
Mining mode off. Mining mode on. Fracturing mode on.
Try putting power back onto the arm, so the arm is moving again. Check that I've not rebound any of the controls or anything like that while I've been out and about. Nope.
Fracturing mode on. Mining mode off. Mining mode on.
That poor announcer voice that's just constantly mining mode on, mining mode off, mining mode on. It's not working. Try a different rock. Nope, doesn't work with that one either. Everything looks okay. Looks like it's working. But at this point, after however many minutes of trying, it's obvious that something isn't right. And whether there's some damage on it, whether there's just something that's not hooked up and working correctly. So I'm just gonna move on and do something else. The advantage of ships like the C1 Spirit, other ships as well, it's not just the C1, is that they're quite versatile platforms. So if what you're heading out to do isn't working in the way that you intend, you can just switch it up, do something else. And that's what we're going to do now. So I'm going to leave that ROC Mining rover there in the middle of a moon, in the middle of nowhere. And the reason for that is, frankly, I want to reclaim it anyway. I think there's something, I've decided there's something broken with that ROC Mining rover. And so I'm going to leave it there. We'll reclaim and repair and all that other stuff when I get back to a home base. But I'm not going to let it ruin my session. The server seems stable enough, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to head out and do some cargo trading instead, rather than waste too long trying to figure out why the mining rover isn't working. So first thing I'll do is head up into orbit, and then we'll head to a trade post. So there we are, halfway through a gameplay video, and I've sped footage up and things like that, so not 100% like for like, but halfway through, things weren't working, so I'm just changing it up, doing something different instead. That happens sometimes. So I'm going to head across to Calliope. I've got a few routes kind of in my head that I know can be quite good little routes, especially for a smaller SCU ship like the C1 Spirit. Calliope is a great place for a number of those. You can, between different locations on Calliope, you can often move around and sell things between those locations without even having to leave the moon, just hopping around the moon. So that's the intention here. I think part of the reason as well I want to showcase these challenges, these bugs, these issues as they crop up is that they're often not game breaking in a strict sense. So sometimes they are game breaking, right? I'm not saying that that doesn't happen. And in this case, I've clearly not been able to go ROC mining. Although if I was determined, I'm sure I could have reclaimed it, repaired it, etc. But the game itself is still working, and it's versatile enough that you can just go and do something else instead if you're having an issue with a particular element.
Check the cargo terminal.
And just as I'm saying that, here's another little bug. These are some little gems that I've collected over time, and there is a known bug with this kind of price mismatch. And there are some suggested workarounds, so sometimes splitting the stack helps, sometimes going to a different location helps, sometimes just moving stuff from different inventories helps, but yeah, that wouldn't sell. So instead I'm going to fill up the cargo bay with astatine, and then we'll move on to the next location. There we are. I love the profile of that C1 Spirit. I think it looks fantastic. It's not a big ship, but it's not a small ship. It's that kind of right size point to be able to do stuff, but still be relatively easy to fly. happy with this ship. And there's also something satisfying about heading up into a ship and seeing all the cargo lining the cargo bay. Doesn't really get old for me, that. So we've got a cargo bay full of acetine, so the next step is we'll go and sell that. Back to times 12 speed as we hop around the moon. We'll head down to the Rayari Anvik research outpost. I do find it quite handy when these different areas also have like proper landing pads when you're not forced to land on the ground. There's just something about landing on flat and level terrain. Very nice. So engines off, and we'll go and sell up this acetine and load up with the next lot of goods. Always trying to close the doors behind me. It is probably worth noting that these ships with the ramps are potentially a bit more risky for situations like this than ships that have the door and the ladder, just because of the way that it works in Star Citizen. When the ramp is down, anybody can walk up, whereas the ladders can often only be used by authorized personnel. There we are. C1 Spirit. I don't really want to sell that for 1 per unit, thank you. And I'll sell my acetine, make a little bit of cash from that, and then we'll stock up on medical supplies. So the key thing when you're doing some trading with a smaller ship like the Spirit, I say smaller, you know, it's still a decent amount of storage in the back, but compared to like a Hercules or something like that, it's just not on the same scale. So the key thing is that you're trading in the highest possible margin items. Now there's an argument that says you want to be doing that anyway, whatever ship you're in, but it's really critical for these ships because you don't have the economy of scale. When you've got 64 SCU of storage, that's it. Now coming into land here to sell these medical supplies, I can see that there's a Hercules there, so I am doing the quickest possible landing I think I can get away with, getting out of the chair as quickly as possible, because if I can beat that person to the trade console, I can sell my goods and buy my goods before the gargantuan cargo bay of the Hercules somewhat trumps my pokey little C1. So I'm trying to be as quick as possible and as secure as possible by closing the cargo bay. I'm just having a quick glance over to see if I can see anybody getting out of that Hercules, because I know what, once a Hercules is at a smaller location like this, they're going to clear it out. They're going to significantly change the demand models, and when I'm looking for that margin with the Spirit, that's something I want to avoid. And so, moment of truth. Yeah, the demand isn't there, so I can sell 33 SCUs of my medical supplies. And I can buy 33 of agricium. And they've got no more demand for the medical supplies. So once again, I'll just try as a different location, see if they buy the apherite. They don't seem to want to go for it. And these are kind of the supply and demand mechanics that dominate trade in Star Citizen. So I'm just going to give it a minute or two just to see if the demand ticks over. I'd be quite keen to sell these medical supplies here and buy the Agresium. There's still 3 STU of Agresium left there, you see. Just try selling this Aphorite again. I don't think it's going to want to. No. That's fine. That's how it goes. So this isn't the end of the world. I've still got 2 high margin goods on board. I've got these medical supplies and I've got the Agresium. But if I can stock up a little bit more Agresium, I'm really keen to do that. So I guess what I'll do instead is I'll have a look through these little crates and see if there's anything worth grabbing while I'm here. Not really bothered by any of those. There's lots of people that are, by the way. You know, there'll be people who will see and go, oh, that was the Novikov helmet, you should have grabbed that. I'm not that bothered by the weapons and armor stuff. I know it sounds bad, but it's not really what I do with the game, so I'm not hugely concerned by it. I'm very, very rarely get into any sort of FPS because it's just not my bag. You don't have to enjoy every part of the game, do you? Can't see any more lootables on there, so we'll give the console one last try. Nope. And that's fine. So in that case, we'll head and sell up. We've still got some good high margin elements on here, so we should still turn a tidy little profit. So at this point I'm going to head back down to New Babbage for selling up. And what I'll do is I will skirt by the spaceport close enough to be able to ask for landing permission. And more than anything, that's just so that the game remembers this is where I am. So if I crash out or anything like that, hopefully I'll wake back up here. And then as soon as I've been assigned landing bay, I'm going to move out back to the commons and I'll land where we landed before. Just head straight through to the different trade consoles to sell up. Now obviously could instead have done my landing at the spaceport, then got the tram into the commons. But I lost a little bit of time with all that challenge with the ROC Mining rover earlier in the session. So to keep the overall session length down, I was really aiming for this one to be under an hour, which it was. So I thought rather than get the tram, I'll move out, fly in, land manually outside the commons, and just save that little bit of time. New Babbage has got to be one of my favourite places, like whether it's day, whether it's night, that skyline of all of those kind of tall buildings with the lights on, I just think it looks fantastic. There you are, the bright lights that could only belong to a vulture. Come in for a nice landing. Touchdown. Engines off. And off we go. So again, this is probably one of the more risky locations for making sure that somebody doesn't hop aboard. So while I remember, I'm just going to move all of those items off the inventory and out the back of the ship. Make sure that the door is closed. And I do like with the C1 Spirit, you get that little red flashing light which just says the doors are opening or the doors are closing, so that you know, in a situation like this, you already know the doors are closing. I can move on. Unless you're particularly desperate to see if somebody gets aboard, but if the doors are closing, I don't know what you're going to do about it if somebody did get aboard, so... I suppose you could hop on board as well with your FPS weapons or whatever. Not for me. Back into the commons through the surface access entrance, which is where we came in to get our ROC Mining rover earlier. Our defunct ROC Mining rover. And then a short elevator ride up to the commons itself. See, even this area of New Babbage, I think it's just... it feels like the sort of place where people go and hang out and do their shopping. Go out for a bite to eat, or we're just going to head across to the commons and grab something to eat, or grab a coffee, or whatever. It's one of the things I really like about Star Citizen is so many of the places, they feel like they've been thought through. Hopefully you know what sort of thing I mean. So here we are. Select the C1 Spirit. We'll sell the medical supplies and the agresium. And all in all, for about half an hour's worth of trading, that nets a total profit of 38k, which is pretty reasonable for a ship of this size. So, if you enjoyed this gameplay video, pressing the like button will let me know I should make more like this. If you're not yet subscribed, given that you've got this far, you probably want to do that too, so that YouTube will know to show you more videos like this in future. But otherwise, and as always, thank you for watching.